Well, we're into our fourth part of the Advent season, and as I have explained to you, I've taken a little bit different turn on this. The Advent wreath that you see up front here, that 4 candles I just lit, the wreath itself is a symbol of God. It's a complete circle. It's evergreen, has no beginning, no end. Not the same symbology of a wedding ring. It represents eternal life, eternal love. The first candle I lit is the green one in the lower left of this on the screen, and that represents life and enthusiasm. And I'm pairing these qualities. Life is the basic element of God. We say God is life. As we think of God as this unseen support system, it expresses as life all around us. And when a person expresses life, we say they're expressing enthusiasm. They're enthusiastic about their life. When you feel very much alive, you're enthusiastic. So the two go together. The second candle I lit is the pink or red one, and that represents love, and that manifests through us as understanding. And it's understanding in a slightly different way than we might think of love, although it covers all bases. But understanding in this sense is that love is a power working through us and as us. Love dissolves everything unlike itself. Love dissolves that which is standing in our way, that which is blocking greater freedom, the flow of greater freedom in our experience. And it also attracts that which is for our highest good. So when you begin to affirm divine love is working through you and things start falling apart, you might take note of this, that love is twofold in its action. It dissolves that which may be holding you back, and it attracts that which will help you take the next step forward. Last week we talked about power and strength, the third candle, which is blue. And that power, when we think of God, we naturally think of power, but it's not necessarily in just the lightning bolts and the earthquakes and the volcanoes, all of the things we consider very powerful. It is that energy that pushes the seed open and above the soil. It manifests in all kinds of ways. It manifests through us. We know it as strength. If you feel like you are powerless in your life, you feel you don't have the strength to go on in some area, this is an area of God to focus on, to begin to affirm that the power of God is unfolding through me in beautiful ways, and you begin to then get the strength, feel the strength to take the next step. And it can be a very small rising, just a shift in awareness, just a moment of saying to yourself, I've backed up far enough, I'm not going any further. This is where I hold my ground. This is where I hold my faith. I have strength to hold on to what I know is true. And if you're doing anything new in life, if you're making changes, whatever, probably you'll want to call on power and the strength quite often. Today we're looking at intelligence. And we're thinking in terms of not God as this real smart old man up in the sky that knows how to run and create and run universes, but as the intelligence that permeates every aspect of life. And what we see, that manifests as order. And you've got a galaxy on the left and a nautilus shell on the right. And it's amazing that there's a pattern that both follow, and on totally different scales. And this is just a couple of examples of how we see intelligence and order expressed all through life. If we could, as I said in the meditation, just contemplate the functions of our physical bodies. There are so many things going on that we have no idea how they're going on. How do your cells divide? Prior to our birth, I don't think any of us had to take a class in knowing how to divide our physical cells. It's something that we are endowed with. It's an intelligence, and what's totally incredible about it is that the cells in the top of your head know what the cells in the tips of your toes are doing. There's a coordination. There's an order to all of it. And we don't need to know anything about it. And nobody can really explain it. Scientists can look at it, and what they report is fascinating. What they tell us about the body is fascinating. But there's a point where they have to stop talking and, watch the functions occur. And that is something that it's the grace of intelligence working through us. We don't have to know how it works, and that's the beauty of it. And that intelligence expresses through us as order. So as I said earlier too, if you're at a place in your life where you feel uncertain about what to do next, this is probably the element of God that you would focus on. The intelligence of God is working through me, and if you don't think that's true right off, just start thinking about your body and how it works. What we tend to do is we have an ache and pain or something in our body's not quite working right. We focus on that instead of the other 99.9% that is working. It's a pretty incredible machine that we have here, this physical body, and we don't have to know how it works at all. Just we feed it properly, we do exercise, we do the things that keep it maintained, but we're not in charge of running the show in that sense. So if you think of your life in the same way, just say that intelligence that's running my body also knows how to run my life. It knows how to work through this situation in ways that will open doors for me, that I will be able to see, which way to go and so on. Again, you don't have to instruct your body. You don't have to instruct any aspect of your body, and think of the same thing with the situation that you're involved in. It's just an extension. Our life is an extension of us. We don't normally think about that. We think of life as something happening out here. But if you step off this planet today, your life, all of the influence that you have stops. It stops the moment you step off. It doesn't stop in people's memory necessarily. But you are causing something. You're causing a unique set of circumstances to unfold. And if you think it's not me, but the Father in me, or this creative life force that is God, call it whatever you want, this energy that is working through me is intelligent. It knows how to unfold through me in a beautiful way at this moment. And whatever the blockage is, remember, if love is dissolving that which is not for your highest good, you say that blockage, love is in play now as well. And it's drawing to me that which is for my highest good. All these powers work together. All these elements work together. We're just dividing them up just so we can put each one under the microscope and look at the different facets. But you may want to focus more, depending on your situation, on one of these elements more than the others, but knowing they're all working. If you said to you create a prayer for your cells, my cells are all dividing perfectly. Well, that's just one thing they do. There's a lot of things they need to, a lot of jobs they accomplish. And so you don't have to cover all the bases to know that all of that is working. So we see intelligence and order in all kinds of ways. We see a lot of chaos as well. That was one of the things that the ancient Egyptians were pretty grounded in, was two powers, one of chaos and one of order. And they would call upon the gods to bring order where there was chaos. And that was part of the idea of making the Pharaoh the godly king, is so we would have an earthly representative of the divine that would hang around and keep things in order. And of course things would fall out of order. The Nile would flood, or some catastrophic event would happen, some war or something would come about, and there would be chaos. So there is this kind of ebb and flow going all the time. And that's true throughout the universe. It's true. We've seen 5 major extinctions on this planet, according to scientists. And of all the living creatures that have ever been around. Guess how many they're saying went extinct? Any guesses? Of all the living creatures that have ever lived, science tells us that 99.9% of all creatures that have ever lived are now extinct. So think about that for just a few minutes. It's pretty incredible. And most of the mass extinctions that they know of came about through some great catastrophe. But life rebounds. Life comes back. It doesn't necessarily come back in the same form. I was telling you last week that science believes also that modern birds descended from dinosaurs. So the T-Rex of yesterday is the chicken of today. That, is a real humbling thing for the T-Rex, I'm sure. But it is adaptation. It's intelligence adapting to the environment. But life itself keeps pushing. It keeps pushing forward. So when it's destroyed, when the vehicle is destroyed, all the life, all the power, all the love, all the intelligence are still working to bring that up again. And it comes in different forms. I was reading about Darwin's finches. Maybe you've read about them. He observed when he was in the Galapagos Islands that there was a species of finch that had, depending on which island it was on, it had a different shape of beak. Some were very heavy and some were very thin. And what he realized is the finch is the same, but they have adapted, each one on each island has adapted to the food sources on that island. So what that shows is the life force is the same. It never changes, it never wavers. It's producing finches, it's producing all these things. But the actual biological thing, the bird, adapts. And that's what we are doing as we live our lives. We are opening to intelligence and maybe having to adapt, maybe having to do things differently, maybe having to think of ourselves in different ways or think of our life in different ways. It's not that our life is falling apart, our life is moving forward. But life as we knew it, there are no more dinosaurs. I can't say that we're going to really miss those guys, but it changed. And yet this invisible force adapts. It produces a biology that knows how to adapt because it's invested with intelligence. Nobody explains to it how to do it. It just does it. And the result is the biology changes. That's why I talk about the soul as being complete. There's, when we think of cosmology, the current theory is Big Bang, as you all know, the Big Bang theory. But an idea that was held a lot of weight for a long time was called the steady state. And that belief is the universe didn't have a beginning, didn't have an end. It's a steady state. It was eternal. It always existed. And Einstein actually embraced this, and he fought against the idea of the Big Bang. And it was the astronomer Fred Hoyle that actually coined the term Big Bang, and he did it as a joke because he embraced this steady state idea. The universe is eternal. It never changes. It truly is expanding. They tried to figure out how to make the steady state work with the idea of the expanding universe. But most cosmologists have gone to the Big Bang because they have observed some things that just the steady state just doesn't work. But what I like to think about is that soul is in the steady state, this life force behind the biology, behind the expression is in a steady state. So the biology gets messed up. We have these extinctions, we have these changes that occur, but the life force, the creative life force that is beneath this doesn't change. It's in a steady state. And its steady state is continual expression. So when the biology is messed up, it begins to reinvent. It begins to push through as intelligence to adapt and so on. And that's where science would disagree with the spiritual premise, is it doesn't see any underlying invisible force we might call God. It totally eliminates that and says that all of this intelligence we're talking about comes from the biology itself. So when we die, when things die, we're dead. There's no more life force. But it would seem to me that the recovery from these mass extinctions would illustrate that there's some underlying power here. And again, I'm not talking about an old man up in the sky that says, oh, that was messed up, so I think I'll start again and make a chicken instead of a T-Rex, because chickens get along with humans a lot better than T-Rexes do. T-Rex is the top of the food chain and the chicken's on the food chain, so works a lot better for mammals that have evolved. But if none of that makes sense, it is applicable to our life. That whatever changes, we may have a meteorite come and smash our life, to bits. Everything changes, and we say, what do I do? The me that knew how to function in that environment doesn't know how to function in this one. I don't know what to do. I was talking to somebody yesterday that was in this very place, and I have been in this place many times. You have too. I did great back then, but I don't know what to do now. So what I'm saying, in essence, is I only have so much intelligence. And that intelligence was well adapted to the environment that was just destroyed. But it's not so well adapted to the environment that I am now in, which is foreign to me. That's where we would need to call on the intelligence of God. That has not changed. That's in a steady state. So my soul is an expression of divine intelligence, and divine order continues to unfold through me. And so I'm open to new things unfolding, new ideas, new ways of thinking. Maybe I'm walking along with a cloud over my head, and I bump into a friend that gives me an idea, tells me something, and it sparks a whole chain of thought that gets me going in a new way, and I get excited again about the possibilities of my life. But if we're longing for the old, if we're longing for what we feel like we're losing, that's going to change all the time. The surface of life changes all the time. It's the inner that we need to learn to trust. And it's so easy to rely on the outer, to look at that and say, I'll be peaceful as long as it is, rather than understanding that the peace that God is, the peace that is present, is eternal. It doesn't change. My peace of mind may change because my peace rests on things being a certain way, and if those things are messed up, my peace is gone, my peace is destroyed. So the question is, how do I recover that? And usually we run out and try to reestablish something that looks like the thing we lost. But the place we begin is to be still and know. That's the whole teaching of the Bible. This is an intuitive thing, an intuitive approach. The intellect says it's all gone. I have no reason to be peaceful. But the intuition, which is what we're talking about through this Advent season, opening this intuitive nature up to this creative life force that manifests through me as intelligence and order, that I begin to affirm the intelligence and order of God is now expressing through me. And I get inspired in new ways. It doesn't mean that something falls out of the sky and that's your answer, necessarily. It may mean you take a new course of action. You start thinking of yourself in a different way. You start getting enthusiastic about your life again, looking at possibilities. And just the openness to thinking my life's not over. This is just a place, one place. The asteroid hit and it all looks pretty gray right now. But it is recovering even as I look at it. And that may take some time. But this idea of faith is, where is your faith? What direction is it pointed? Is it pointed at the ground? Is it pointed at the sky? Is it pointed at the things that have gone, or is it pointed at the possibilities that are unfolding now? That's what we ask ourselves. But it's important to hold this idea that I'm never separate from God. However you think of God, you can never be separate from it. God is omnipresent, everywhere present equally at the same time. God doesn't evolve. My soul doesn't evolve. It's the foundation. To build my house upon the rock is to build my thought, my consciousness, my belief system, my understanding on the rock of that changeless truth. The intelligence of God is never gone. And so I open myself to that, inspired by new ideas, new direction. I hear people in ways I've never heard them. I might be driving down the street, see a billboard that has some silly line that would have been silly yesterday, but today something clicks, something turns on because I see that. I open one of my favorite books, read a line. That's what I need that day, that moment. Gets me to think in a whole different way. And it's very easy because my whole life has changed dramatically. The unity that I signed up for, as I've told you many times, really no longer exists. And I feel like my whole professional basis has been pulled out from under me. So I can mourn that. I can think about all of the wonderful times Beth and I had through the conferences and all the committees and all the things that we were involved in for so many years, and now that's gone. But truth is still here. What I talk about right now is still here. And this is what I signed up for. This is what I am here to do, is not be part of some group, but to be in a teaching situation that might help other people open themselves to the beauty of their own life. So that can never be taken away. And that's a very interesting shift I've had to go through. It's a very forced maturity, I guess you'd have to say, is where's my dependency? Is it upon unity, the organization, or is it upon God? And that was the question I had to face and think about. And that is going to be true with every single person on this planet. We enter experiences, sometimes they're healing experiences, where we lose our health. And we have been very involved in religion, and we believe in healing. We believe God can heal. And here we are standing all alone with our disease, with our problem. And it feels like all of our prayers for healing don't work. Nothing works. And so what do? Do we say, the heck with religion? Religion doesn't work. That's what a lot of us do, is we reject religion because it didn't work. But what's not working is I had my faith in the religion rather than in what the religion was talking about. And that's the shift we always have to make. That's what we're all brought to at some point in our life. We lose our trust in man. We lose our trust in the outer. But we gain our trust in God. That's the shift we're making. That is what we mean by the spiritual path. And quite often people go for years and years and years not having to make that choice, never having to confront the difference between having a set of beliefs and knowing. There's a huge difference in believing something is true and knowing something is true. And I'll prove it. You can't read what's on the left, and I've made it small intentionally. What it is on the left is a description of the molecular composition of orange juice. And it's something that, if you want a copy of it, because you'll use it the rest of your life, it's like it really comes in handy. If somebody was trying to explain to you what orange juice is, which side would you rather have? And which side would be the most instructive? You could read all of this, and I did read it, and I didn't understand a bit of it. I mean, I understood it, but it made orange juice sound gross. It talks about the serum and all the things that float around and all the composition of what they are. You go on Wikipedia if you want to, if you're one of these people that love this kind of thing. It is interesting. But you could take that description all of your life. You could memorize it. You could make it your scripture. If you didn't taste orange juice, you wouldn't know what it was talking about. But you take one sip out of that glass of orange juice and you know instantly what it is. And that's what we're talking about. That's the difference between religion and spirituality. religion is the description, the molecular description of orange juice. Spirituality is the experience of tasting orange juice. The tasting is subjective. You can't really describe it to somebody. I read another article about a physicist that came up with formulas describing the taste of orange juice, and it was about 10 pages long. But even if I was a physicist, I still wouldn't know what orange juice tastes like after reading that. And I'm not knocking physicists, because that stuff really is interesting. What's also interesting is if you look at that same description that's on the left there, the written description, if you looked at that 100 years ago, 200 years ago, it'd be different, a lot shorter. We're learning more and more and more about the composition of orange juice. But what's interesting about this also, you take, and we consider that intelligence. You know, if you know this kind of thing, if your head is full of this kind of stuff, you're an intelligent person. Maybe a PhD. You know, you have all kinds of facts in your head. But the question is, have you ever tasted orange juice? Now, what we have in the religious industry is a lot of people that are saying, read this word, read this Bible, read this thing, do these things, but they've never had a direct experience with God. It's a concept that they carry around in their heads, and they teach it, and it's passed on as an idea. But you get a guy like Jesus, he comes along and he's tasted the orange juice, and he's saying, you know, all that's fine, but the letter really kills. It's the spirit that gives life. It's the drinking of the orange juice. That's what gives life. You'll learn more from one sip than you could learn in years of study of the composition of orange juice. And another interesting thing about this, you could read another description, I'm not going to bore you with that, about how your body assimilates orange juice once you drink it. But do you need to do that? There is an intelligence working in us that knows how to do that, and it's miraculous. I mean, it seems miraculous, but it's everyday stuff to the body. It knows how to take the nutrients out of this orange, knows how to take every element of the orange juice and put it in the right place. That's intelligence. And it's not something you have to ask for. Like, you know, you have a glass of orange juice, so you have a long prayer about, dear God, let your intelligence work through my body so it will recognize that I could read all these things, and that it's all assimilating and taking. You don't even think about that. You don't have to. Jesus said, let thy will be done, not mine. He's acknowledging a process. He's acknowledging that when I drink the orange juice, something in me knows how to run the motor. Something in me knows how to assimilate. When I say my life is in divine order, then do I go out and try to make it in divine order? Do I go out and try to fix everything? Or do I wait? Do I respond to the promptings I get? My life is in divine order is a letting go. It's a statement that allows us to let go and move into that awareness of peace, that peaceful place where I don't have to think about the orange juice and how it is taken into my body. There's something in me that knows. There's something in my life that knows. So intelligence and facts, do you have to know the molecular structure of orange juice to benefit from its nutritional qualities? We don't. You don't have to know that. It's interesting, and it's all information that's there if you're that kind of person. I am that kind of person in some things, but not in all things, and certainly not orange juice. I could care less what it's made of. It just tastes good. Do you have to understand how your body assimilates nutrients? You know, that's a study also, and it can be helpful to understand this stuff. But you don't make it happen. You eat foods that you want assimilated into your system and so on. That's the difference. It's an intelligent choice of things that work for you as opposed to things that work against you. When we affirm our life is in divine order, we trust that the intelligence of God is guiding our every step. It's just what I said. When you drink the orange juice, you trust that intelligence in you knows where to put everything, knows how to guide it and how to direct it. So when you affirm, my life is in divine order, it's a letting go. It's an affirmation of peace. My life is in divine order, so I don't have to worry about it. It doesn't mean you just sit around and do nothing. You'll be prompted to do something if there's something you need to do. Or someone will be guided to call you or contact you in some way. But to affirm my life is in divine order isn't something, it's not a thing that you do and then go out and fix everything. Or try to fix everything. That's what drives us crazy. Things are not in order. Coming here this morning, I had all the electronics set up and they don't work this morning, the ones I use up here. So I went through a catastrophic few moments and thought, well, it doesn't really matter. My life is in divine order. That's what I'm talking about today, so I better pretend like that's true. And it is true. As you can see, we're getting through this whole thing. But that's what we do, you know, especially as clergy. I know many ministers that teach prosperity and max out their charge cards. That's not right. You don't do that. If you're prosperous, that means you're satisfied, you're happy right where you are, knowing that greater good is unfolding at this moment. I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm here to get you to prove it to yourself. That's my job. Okay, so we have some affirmations of intelligence and order. Let me say them first and then invite you to join me in speaking them aloud together. Let me say it first. The very essence of my being is intelligence. Together. The very essence of my being is intelligence. My mind is clear. My thinking is orderly. Together. My mind is clear. My thinking is orderly. I see things in their highest relation to the whole. My vision is clear. Inner vision. Together. I see things in their highest relation to the whole. My vision is clear. My soul is imbued with the wisdom of the universe. Together. My soul is imbued with the wisdom of the universe. In all I do, I move forward in confidence and in peace. Together. In all I do, I move forward in confidence and in peace. And that's the point. We move forward in confidence and peace, knowing the intelligence of God is working in and through and as us, and that divine order is unfolding at this very moment. Okay, so we are moving tonight into the candlelighting service, which is really a culmination of all of these things we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks. And it's not an evolutionary process. It is a process of waking up to what is here now. Very important distinction to make. And that's what traditional religion is, waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to come back, waiting for something to fall in place so we can all be happy. And this approach is that that basis, that foundation is here now. That's what we're opening ourselves to. And this idea of the birth of the Christ in us is the awakening to that dimension, that level. All right, thanks for coming out. Hope to see you tonight.